Welcome to the Value Proposition by the Fitness Business Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Pellegrino. The Value Proposition is the monthly show on the Fitness Business Podcast, created specifically for industry suppliers to showcase the value that they bring to health club owners and operators beyond their product or service. For our April 2022 show, we'll be speaking with Joan Gebhardt, Vice President of Sales for Creative Surfaces. Joan is going to give us an update on our industry from her perspective, because building new spaces correlates beautifully to how many new and improved fitness facilities we're seeing in our industry. She'll be sharing some of her favorite spaces to design recently, and she'll give you the inside scoop on how you can make a little money go a long way when it comes to giving your fitness facility a fun new refresh. Joan, welcome back to the Value Proposition.
Hi, Sarah. I cannot believe it actually has been a year, and what a year it has been. Very exciting in the fitness industry, from all different small boutique clubs to large big box clubs. The fitness industry is very much on the upswing. Everyone is looking at, refacing, remodeling, additional clubs. So it is a very exciting time for the fitness industry and for Creative Surfaces.
Now, if our FBP family missed your March 2021 Value Proposition episode, which I would strongly suggest you all go back and take a listen to, it was Fitness Business Podcast episode 347. Joan, let's give them a little background on who Creative Surfaces is as a company and what you and your team do for fitness business operators.
So Creative Surfaces is a one-stop shop in the fitness industry. We do anything from the visual layout of your club to designing the whole interior to manufacturing all the products that goes inside your space to installing all of it. So anything with the millwork for a front desk to lockers to retail, selling product, to a lot of branding, to interior and exterior signage, to furniture. So we basically can either work off an architect or work directly with the owner, which we are in many cases, and create your entire space for you, other than flooring and the equipment.
A full one-stop shop, right?
A full one-stop shop.
That is awesome, Joan. Now, we all know that first impressions are absolutely everything. So what is a design element that all front desk reception spaces should include?
Well, I saw that question, and I guess what I am going to say is selecting a employee that is going to be a smiling face representing your brand and your company. Yes, that is not part of our millwork package. However, it is the face that goes along with creating that space when you walk in. And, the front desk area should be inviting, but also in other areas, it should be motivational, whether it would be with graphics, empowering words of encouragement, whether that would be a selfie wall that you can take as you enter the club for your journey that you're starting out, or that you're proud of when you're leaving the club. That many times I'm encouraging many of the clubs to do what I'll call a selfie wall that is empowering for the members.
I love that idea. First, on the employee, that is so, so important, especially people coming back to the club, maybe coming for the first time. Very, very good recommendation there. I love the selfie wall, that emphasis on, that member first attitude. That is fantastic. Really making sure they're proud of their journeys too. Mm-hmm. As we have discussed it at length, I will say, Joan, our industry is in recovery mode. So what are the best recommendations for someone that wants to give their fitness facility a little facelift, but doesn't have the largest budget to work with? Where should they focus their finances to make the most impact?
That again is a good question. And I am working with I'll name one just off the cuff. I'm working with the brand F45. They're trying to give members the experience. They already have them engaged as a member in their club. How do we create that space that gives them the mental clarity, the relaxation, the zen that we all need in this day and age? That, let's face it, there's a lot more to the fitness industry. And I spoke about this at Club Industry, that the mental aspect of fitness is as equally important almost as the physical aspect of that. And creating that space where someone can go and relax. We're doing a meditation room. We're doing some with just a hydro massage. So you can look at a space and you might start with talking to your members and saying, what do you want? Do you want a room where you can go in where there is no technology, there isn't a TV, you can't have a phone, that you can just be present for the moment? So on the budget side of it, it depends upon, again, asking your members what they want. If you can afford to put an infrared sauna, if you can afford to put the hydro massage, but if you can't afford all of that, just creating a quiet zone space that might be darkened, that members have that opportunity to just go and be present and without the distractions of the world.
Just a meditation room.
A meditation room where they can just be present. And there isn't a lot of cost into doing that, other than if you wanted to paint the walls, put in an empowering message, and no technology allowed.
I love that. That's such a great recommendation, Joan. Thank you for that. Now, Joan, as personal training business built back to pre-pandemic figures, are there any cool design elements that you are seeing operators focus on, or any big design changes that they're making to personal training spaces?
Well, again, this goes back to, along with the personal training, trainers are also recommending the recovery aspect of the workout. So again, in some of the recovery areas that we're creating, we're bringing a lot more green spaces in. We're bringing nature inside, the outside. We're creating, again, going back to those spaces where they can do, the infrared saunas, the red light therapies, the hydro massage, and any of those spaces is all part of the personal training. They do the training with the weights, all of that, and then they go into the recovery area. So it is all kind of tying together.
I love that. I love the nature aspect. That's really interesting to me, the calming just effect.
Doing a lot of green wall spaces, a lot of live trees, faux trees, plants, where they can breathe. The greenery obviously brings in the oxygen, so all of the above.
Wow. Now, on that same token, Joan, what about group fitness? Are we seeing anything change in these rooms, or have those kind of just stayed the same?
What is happening with group fitness is, in the past, you created individual rooms for like bar, spinning, cycling, all of that. Now what they're doing is creating one larger space that can pivot to what they want. They might be able to hold a yoga class. They might be able to hold a Zumba class. They might be able to hold a dance class. But what we are doing is making that room, creating lighting, cool lighting, LED with color wheels in it. Not so much a stage, recommending different type of floors that have flexibility, that they can do all different types of classes in there. Because let's face it, people want what's hot at the moment, and then they want to go on to the next thing. If you create the space where you can darken the mood with the lighting and create like a nightclub type dance class, or you can do a vinyasa yoga, by darkening it with the lights. So I would say in that aspect, we're not providing as much on there, other than a design aspect, again, of, recommended branding, empowering words of motivation, as well as maybe recommending what we do with color wheels of whatever it might be at that time. So really making that space a much more generic type space that can be used for multitudes of different type classes.
Well, and that tracks with the boutique trend too, right? You have a smaller space and you need to be able to do more with it. So making it versatile is very important.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Now, Joan, we are here to talk about recovery spaces and what you're seeing and the huge growth that you are seeing in recovery areas. I'm so excited for you to share with us, either design elements or some of your favorite projects. I'm just excited for you to share with our FBP family what you're learning about recovery spaces and fitness.
Well, I can tell you we are doing it in almost every type of national brand that I deal with. I'm not going to name specific brands because I don't want to get in trouble with one or the other, but I deal with a lot of them, as you well know, and anywhere from a $29 model club to $150 a month smaller boutique club. Recovery is the trend. And again, also, and I just spoke on this last week, that what is becoming so critical on the recovery side of it is some of it is even billable on the insurance side, as a counselor is recommending fitness, recovery areas that they can encompass. All of that is billable as this counseling. That you go to recovery, you go to these spaces. We are doing in a recovery, I will tell you, many of the brands we are working with, and I'm not saying all of them, but many are removing kids clubs. Number one, from a liability issue. Number two, from a staffing issue. And putting in these recovery areas anywhere from like a Zen Den to creating a lounge type aspect. We're providing like lounge type furniture to where we can have separate spaces that they can actually go do stretching, or again, they can do the tanning, the cryotherapy, and the infrared. And I'm not endorsed by any of these companies. I can only tell you what we're currently doing. But across the brand of all fitness clubs, all of them are putting recovery in them. There's not one brand that I'm working with that is not pivoting to putting some form of recovery space into their clubs. Part of it, I think, too, is like, let's take, for example, myself, I would go to the club back in South Dakota, and I belonged to, it was called the Sauna House. And I paid $100 a month to go to, as an infrared hot sauna. I paid an extra membership to go to that. So now what is happening is, if many people are intimidated to go to the club, but they're not intimidated if they advertise that we can do recovery, that we can do the hydro massage, or we can do the cryotherapy, that might be their foot in the door rather than the fitness club side. So then they have them in the club as a recovery member, but not as a fitness club member. So then you can take that member that is paying an additional $30 to $40 a month to use the recovery spaces 8 times a month, and then you try to work with them to get on the fitness side. A lot of times many people aren't interested in the exercise aspect of it, but they're interested in the recovery aspect of it.
I think you made a fantastic point here, Joan. There's, recovery spaces are big, and that membership massage model, right? And you're adding in the saunas and the cryotherapy treatments. And you're right, people are going and paying an extra membership for this. So if you can get that group to pay you an upgraded membership, at the end of the day, you're probably saving them money too, right? Mm-hmm. Those memberships aren't free. Let's say average $100 a month for something like that. So you're saving them, you're bringing more business into your club, and you're giving them a safe space. I think that's an incredible recommendation, Joan. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you mentioned Kids Club being removed in certain facilities that you're working with due to staffing, things of that nature. And I think that's really important, because someone might be listening and say, I don't have an extra space for recovery, right? And when you look at it, do you have those spaces that maybe are not being used as well as they could be or should be? And can you repurpose that? So thank you for bringing that conversation to the podcast.
One of them that we're dealing with right now has, I think, less than 1,000 square feet, and so we really try to focus on what is the best product that we can put in there. One of the things that I just learned is the cryo, that there's an electric cryo therapy rather than the nitrogen, which requires almost a whole additional space. And when you go to the electrical cryo, that obviously doesn't include a whole separate room for you to have to put the tanks into. So therefore, you can have a much smaller space. It's almost like a stand-up tanning bed or something like that. You're talking, you need in each room probably 4 to maybe 600 square feet at the most, to be able to fit one of those in there. So not a great amount of space.
I'm sure there's people that didn't know that, right? Didn't know that was even an option. So that's amazing.
I did not know that there's an electric cryo. I learned that in the last 2 weeks.
You just taught me something today.
Yeah.
Now, Joan, you kind of mentioned it, but when you, and again, I realize this isn't one size fits all, but just what you're observing, are you seeing fitness operators, obviously there's probably an upgraded membership to use the recovery space. Is that fair to say?
That's fair. Yep.
What have you seen that range be? Is it $20 a month? Is it $50 a month? Does it depend? What are you seeing?
That again, your questions, again, you're amazing at what you do. And I mean it, because I didn't coach you on any of this. It's crazy. Honestly, it depends. Anywhere from $20 up to $50 are the ones that I've seen. That at the $20, you have a limited amount of times that you can use the recovery. So you might be able to have 8 visits that you have a separate code that you can go into there and use, up to a limited, which is almost double the membership of what you're paying for that club. One in Florida that I'm dealing with, it's literally the same price as joining the club, but then you have unlimited times. But what has happened is there's so much demand for the recovery that many of them did not envision that much usage out of it, that they would all want unlimited. So therefore, they need more space. And where do they take out of that space? Because they are in a 40,000 square foot club and they don't know where else to put that space. I think our society in general is so eager and desperate for mentally and physical ways to relax and to recover, other than the gym side of it, that the recovery side to me is almost as much the mental aspect of it is as the physical aspect of it for everybody, including myself.
100%. When in a massage setting, Joan, if you think about it, the relaxation room is debatably the best part, right? You can come and go. You can stay as long as you want. You're there without a phone most of the time. And it's just a nice place to reflect. That's one thing the pandemic taught a lot of us, was to just be still, right? Be home, not be constantly entertained. But as life gets back to normal, it's important to bring it back to that lesson and really focus on being centered. So I love that. That's great.
Very much.
I want to bring up something too, because recovery doesn't always have to be Zen. It doesn't always have to be, it can be physical. It could be stretching, right? It could be, you brought up hydro massage. We love hydro massage on the value proposition. It could be power plates, like any of those equipment, right? Product companies can really come in and they can bring to you a recovery space as well. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So to our listeners, make sure, if you are partnering with any of those companies, make sure you reach out and ask them what they're doing for recovery too. Right, Joan?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. So I want to pivot just a little bit, and I'm excited to hear your answers here, because you work with so many large franchise groups, and they all do things differently. So what are some design elements and brand requirements that you are seeing franchise groups be really mindful of over and over? What I mean by that is consistent colors, logos, what spaces they're focusing on. If someone's listening and they're not a franchise, what are some lessons that franchise branding and design can teach them?
Well, again, I think that's something that has become, of all the corporate national brands that I deal with, I think that is something that is becoming very strict that they are requiring the franchises, I'll say, to elevate, follow more brand standards, not being as flexible, because the normal consumer does not know the difference between a corporate club and a franchise club. And when there's no consistency and you live, let's say in the Carolinas where we're at, that if there's no consistency and you have a bad experience and that club has not spent any money on remodeling or outfits, it kind of gives this false perception of the rest of that brand and how they look. So I do think many of them, they're becoming stricter with us vendors of making sure that we have the franchises follow the same rules, the same color palettes, the same branding standards, that it isn't just put whatever you want in your space to get the doors open. So consistency is becoming very important across every brand. I'm seeing some of the lower tier models. One of them that I deal with just hired a very high-end executive as a director of construction there in the retail, is now at this brand in fitness. So that tells you something of what the expectations are becoming as far as the retail setting, where they can place their signage, where they can place their front desks. All of the above is becoming very strict guidelines in which they're going to hold the franchises to uphold. And there's a reason that those franchises do need to respect what the rules are that the corporate is now in setting. Everything is becoming much more natural, like in colors. Lighting is another big thing. Lighting is a really big thing. I think that is something that, the whole aspect of lighting in the club just makes a whole difference in your mood and how you feel and how you look in the mirror when you're lifting. So I think that's really, in a nutshell, as far as consistency, is more on the branding side of it, how you use your sign, how you use any of the branding criteria, and making sure that you are following the rules, where before I think there was more flexibility.
You hit it on the head too. It's so important. If you have a bad experience at one club here, you're less likely to go try it in another state, even though completely different ownership group, right? Corporate versus franchise.
Right.
That's really, that's a very, very good point, Joan. Thank you so much. Now, I love learning from you for the fitness industry, but I also love learning from you outside of the fitness industry. So what other sectors are you seeing the most growth right now?
Med spas.
Ooh,
med spas are, very interesting. I'm working on one in Florida with a couple of NBA players. One's retired, one is still current. The med spas that Botox, cryo, again, going back to the recovery, erectile dysfunction. I mean, you're talking a one-stop shop. The med spa industry, it's like you can get it all done in one area. So that is that's been interesting. And another one is, and this is, off the fitness, but wine bars. My goodness.
Yes.
We're working on wine bars and restaurants. I don't know where people are going to get the staffing, but that brings up another thing, is how things are pivoting even in the food industry. Is more of it is like it's almost like self-serve. You go up to the window to pick up your food because there's no staff. And we're talking all over, one in New York City, one in the Carolinas, one in Colorado, all over. So even the restaurant industry is changing to where you go to a pickup window, but it's inside. But that's been interesting. The med spas, obviously has been very interesting because they're popping up all over, everywhere.
I love that you brought up restaurants, because if you didn't, I was going to ask, because I feel like with fitness and even some medical areas, right? Definitely restaurants. Those were industries that were so severely impacted the past few years. So you're seeing them come back stronger than ever, but you're seeing them make changes. They're not coming back the same way they walked into 2020. right?
Right.
They've restructured, they've changed things. You mentioned, hey, we're not doing that well on Kids Club. We don't have the staff for it. People aren't bringing their kids in here. They don't want them to get sick, whatever the case may be. Let's use that room for something else. Same thing in restaurants. We don't have the staff. How can we still have a business without a ton of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really, really interesting connection to make with all those industries. And it's good to hear. It's really positive to hear. So thank you.
It's almost like going to the airport where you order off an iPad. You don't have a contact with anyone. Then you do have someone deliver your food. But in a lot of these restaurants and bars that we're doing, that many of them, it's like you go to a pickup window, and we're creating the pickup window a little bit fancier. It's not right by the kitchen. It's separate. And you might have a host that seats you. And then also gathering spaces, another big space in the restaurant industry. And it's funny that you said that, because I would say the two that were impacted the most during this time are the restaurant and the fitness. And I will tell you unequivocally, and I can send you, I'm extremely busy. We are doing primarily restaurants and fitness.
Love it.
We're up 40% plus.
Amazing.
It's crazy.
Amazing. Wow. Well, Joan, you are an incredibly successful and influential woman in the fitness industry. So I'm curious, for our Women of the Fitness Business Podcast family, is there a piece of advice or just, any words of wisdom that you would share with our female listeners today to just inspire them, whether, they've been in the industry for 40 years or they're just starting out? What would you want to say?
The biggest thing is being passionate about making a difference in other people's lives. And I've said this, when you focus on what you really care about, the rest will come. I never look at it as sales, although it is sales. It's like really trying to make a difference, for that small business owner that has all of their eggs in one basket, so to speak, all of their retirement, all of their 401k, all of their money put in their small club, and trying to make a difference and being passionate about that and passionate about the relationships and being truthful and being honorable, and the rest will come. I've lived by that for many, many years, and your reputation is everything. So that's all that I would have to say.
It is. Oh my goodness. Well, Joan, thank you so much for everything you've shared with us today. If someone is listening and they are just dying to redo or any space in their fitness facility, or bring in a recovery space, or want to chat with you and see how they can work with Creative Surfaces, what's the best way for them to reach you?
I am surrounded by a team of talent that support me and deal with my demanding nature, which is every day. From my artist to my project managers to our CAD people to our entire team. They can reach me by email, or they can look up our website and they can see their Christmas catalog on there and see every type of club, every type of design. And they might look at a bar or a hotel or an auto dealership and get some ideas for their clubs. I take many ideas and cross-reference them that I've done in an auto dealership, that's generally on the cutting edge, and I might make that suggestion to use in a fitness club. So I never get all my ideas just from, the fitness industry. I really cross over from other brands that I'm really blessed to be able to have the opportunity to work in.
Pulling inspiration from other industries. That's
fantastic.
That's so good. Awesome, Joan. Well, thank you so much for your insights today. Thank you to all of our listeners for tuning into the value proposition for rebounding with recovery spaces with our team at Creative Surfaces. Tune in Friday, May 20th for our next value proposition episode. And to show we walk the talk at the Fitness Business Podcast, all the resources and links for today's show can be found at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com, adding value to our FBP family. Until next month, what you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others. See you next month, FBP family.